Hi friends, my name is Jess and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime, and welcome to day 3 of VLOGMAS. So I have my giant glass of wine with me today to talk about the lowest rated books I have read in 2022 according to Goodreads. So yesterday I did the inverse to this video where I looked at all of the highest rated books that I have read in 2022 according to Goodreads. So of course we have to see what Goodreads thinks are the worst books that I've read this year. That's what we'll be doing today. If you missed yesterday's video, I will link it in the cards up above as well as in the description down below. So definitely make sure you check that out. It's a fun one and hopefully this one will be fun as well. Just as a little intro, if you missed yesterday's video, I have a Goodreads list of all of the books that I read in 2022 and I'm just going to sort them by average rating, lowest to highest, and we're going to look at like the top 20 lowest rated books that I've read so far this year. Also, I feel like this lighting is making me look like I have mascara all over my face. I promise I don't. I think it's just the bags under my eyes. My ring light's making them look really bad, so I promise I'm okay. Ignore that. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. I have already looked at this list, so I don't want to throw out any predictions because I kind of already remember what's on there. So let's see if I agree or disagree with the books that Goodreads thinks are the lowest rated. So the very lowest average rated book that I have read in 2022 was Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. This book has an average rating of 3.26 and it is significantly lower than the next book on this list, which I think is super interesting. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars rounded up to 4. I thought it was a really solid thriller. It's kind of like rich people drama. This rich family takes in a boarder every so often and their goal is to like ruin the boarder's life. It's like a sick, twisted game, and the wife that's married into this family, it's her turn coming up next. So she's grappling with wanting to prove herself to her family that she's married into and also just feeling morally wrong about doing this and not wanting to do it. I thought it was really interesting and a fun time. It definitely is not anything realistic or like to write home about. It's pretty like campy and over the top, but I tend to like that in a thriller, so I really don't understand why this has such a low average rating. I'm pretty sure when I did read this and I was reading through reviews, it was just a lot of people that were giving it middling ratings, but I don't know. I feel like 3.26 is such a low rating. I'm kind of shocked that it is such a low rated book. I don't really think it deserves that much of a low rating, but I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Next book on this list is I'm So Not Over You by Kisoko Jackson. This book has an average rating of 3.40, which kind of deserved in my opinion. I gave this book 2 stars and it was kind of a low 2-star, like 1.5 rounded up to 2. I was not a fan of this book. This is a second chance fake dating romance, and my largest problem with this book is that we never learn why the characters broke up in the first place. So we don't understand how their new relationship is going to work if they didn't work through the problems of why they broke up in the first place, because we have no idea why they broke up. So that was my main problem with this book. Also, I didn't really like the writing, so I do kind of agree with this one being one of the lowest rated books that I've read. Honestly, I kind of wanted to DNF it, and I kind of wish that I did. The next book on this list is Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. This book has an average rating of 3.46. I gave it a 3-star. I kind of feel like it might have been like a 2.5 rounded up to a 3. I definitely don't think that this was a super strong thriller. Unlike Good Rich People, which I found super entertaining while I was reading, even though maybe it wasn't the like creme de la creme of storytelling. Such a Quiet Place was honestly a really boring story and the ending really let me down. It definitely was far from a solid thriller and I did not enjoy it very much, which is why I gave it a low rating, and I can see why other people also gave it a low rating. I definitely kind of agree with this one being down at the bottom. Next on the list is a book that I read very recently. If you didn't know, I've been doing a Twilight read along with some of my friends here on BookTube this year. December is our last month. We're reading Midnight Sun. Super excited about that. But I did read The Short Second Life of Brie Tanner by Stephanie Meyer, which is the novella that comes after Eclipse in the timeline, and it follows like a random side character from that book. I ended up giving this book 1 star because I just don't understand what the point is. Brie Tanner is not a very interesting character. Stephanie could have written about literally almost anyone else, and I think it would have been more entertaining. This book was just too long. I feel like maybe like a short story would have sufficed, but again, it was dumb and needless, and you know. That's all I really have to say. It has a 3.51 average rating. I think most people feel the same way I do. Like, we didn't need this. Why'd you write this? Feels like a cash grab kind of more than anything. But yeah. Next book on this list is How to Find a Princess by Alyssa Cole. And this book has an average rating of 3.51 and I gave it a 2-star rating. I agree with this being down here at the bottom of the books that I've read so far this year. I did not enjoy this one. This is a female-female royalty romance where it's kind of like Princess Diaries where one girl is a long-lost princess and she she like discovers she's a princess and she doesn't really want to be a princess, but she's being kind of trained and convinced to fulfill her role as princess. Her love interest Bez works for like the royal security, the royal guard, something that she is like been tasked with bringing Makeda back to the country to rule. It's almost kind of like bodyguard princess trope. It's in that realm, but it's not quite that. But yeah, this was just a case where I wasn't feeling the romance. The characters were kind of weird. It was really long too. This was like a 400-page book and the characters didn't really even get together until page like 397. So it was painful. I agree with this being down here too. Next on the list is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. This book has an average rating of 3.55. I gave it a 3-star, so I definitely find myself aligned with the average rating on Goodreads. I think that it's pretty fair. In my personal opinion, this book was boring. It's a cozy mystery, and I appreciated that it had a lot of like casual queerness, but I really didn't like the writing. It felt very low stakes, which I guess is what a cozy mystery is supposed to feel like, but it felt low stakes while at the same time people were getting murdered all the time. So it was like a very weird dynamic going on. Honestly, aside from the main character, I couldn't keep any of the side characters straight. Like there were two like male kind of love interest-ish people in this book, if I remember correctly. And whenever one of them was in a scene, I literally could not tell the difference between the two. I was like, is this man number 1 or man number 2? I have no idea. So needless to say, that wasn't a favorite. I see why it's down here. Next, The Sea is Salt and So Am I by Cassandra Hart. This book has an average rating of 3.56. I gave it a 2-star rating, so tending a little bit lower than the average Goodreads rating, but it definitely doesn't surprise me that this book made it down so low on this list. This book to me read very much YA of the era of like John Green. Like Sick Kids, kind of like depression is beautiful style mental health rep. I feel like if you were around in that era, like 2012 Tumblr books, beginning of BookTube kind of era, I feel like that's what this book reminded me of, and it made me feel icky. It just felt very fake deep to me. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the story. It took me so long to get through this one, so I understand why it has a low average rating, and I definitely would agree with that. Not one of my favorite books that I read this year. Next book on this list is New Moon by Stephanie Meyer, which is the first book I feel like does not deserve to be here. Yes, Twilight has its problems. It's not a perfect series by any means, but I do feel like for a while there, it was such a trend to like hate on Twilight and like hate read it and give it like negative stars, which is sad. This series is just such a nostalgic thing for me, and I feel like it is one of those pieces of media that you can still love but interact with critically at the same time. Like as you can see, I gave it 4 stars. Like I don't think it's a 5-star book, but I definitely don't think it deserves to be one of the lowest rated books averagely that I've read in 2022. I just think it's kind of popular to hate Twilight, and I think that's why this has such a low average rating. It doesn't help that this is widely the least popular in the series, so I think that's probably part of it as well, but I don't know. I love New Moon. It's not my least favorite in the series, so it makes me sad that it's on this list. Next book here is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I gave this book 3 stars. I think I might have given it 3.5 and rounded down. Honestly, right on what the average rating is on Goodreads, which is a 3.60. With this book, this is a YA dark academia, features solely women, which I think is really cool, and I really enjoyed that part of it. It takes place at like an all-female boarding school, and I really liked the vibes and the writing of this book, and the first half was super interesting and exciting, but I feel like the second half of this book just like took a nosedive and a really strange turn that I did not enjoy, and I think that that was a similar sentiment to other people who read this book, and I think that's why it has a lower average rating than some of the other books I've read this year, so I understand why it's down here, and I kind of agree. Next book on this list is Boss Witch by Anne Aguirre. This book has a 3.60 average rating, which in my opinion is way too high. As you can see, I gave this book 1 star. This is a book that, spoiler alert, will actually be on my least favorites of the year list. I hated this book so much, and it definitely deserves to be down here. This is like a ridiculous, stupid romance featuring a witch who falls in love with like a witch hunter, I guess, but she doesn't even really fall in love with him. She's just like trying to date him so he won't try and persecute her family, and the writing was just so bad and the characters were so cringy, and I just hated every second of reading this book. I hated every second of reading this book. This one should be the #1 lowest averagely rated book that I've read in 2022. I don't understand why it's even got a 3.6 because it's a 1-star book to me. The next book on this list hurts my soul quite a bit, and that's Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. This book has an average rating of 3.63, and as you can see, I wholeheartedly disagree with this. I gave it 5 full stars. I love this book so much. And I definitely have read through some of the reviews. I really just don't agree with the people giving this book negative reviews. Like, the most common complaint that I've seen in reviews for this book is that the characters are annoying, and I can see where they're coming from. These characters are definitely very like campy and over the top. This is a historical romance, and it's very much like a romp. It's supposed to be campy, it's supposed to be silly, it's not taking itself seriously, it's supposed to be fun. And I just feel like so many people took it too seriously. Alexis Hall's writing style is so humorous and so funny to me. I love his writing. It cracks me up. I don't know. We just have the same sense of humor. So his writing just really works for me, and I thought his characters were so fun, and I was just cheering for them the whole time. And the situations are definitely exaggerated and silly, but they're just supposed to be. Like, do you hate fun? Like, I don't understand. So this book makes me very sad that it is on this list, but I guess that's okay. More for me. And next, here we have Twilight Appear by Stephanie Meyer. This has an average rating of 3.63 as well, and I give it a 5-star rating. In my opinion, Twilight is the strongest book in this series by far. I haven't read Midnight Sun yet, but I have a feeling that I will still think Twilight's the strongest book. It just seems the most well thought out, well planned, well organized, well edited, and the story arc makes the most sense, and the characters are just well developed. And honestly, I love Twilight. This first book I think is so good. I think that it is low rated for the same reason that I talked about New Moon being low rated, is I just think people think that it's cool and fun and you're not like other girls if you don't like Twilight. Like, it's fine if Twilight's not your cup of tea, but you know what I mean. I just feel like it was a trend for a while to hate on this book, and I think it gets a lot more flack than it deserves for things that it doesn't really deserve to get flack for. Yeah, Stephanie Meyer was very ignorant in her racial dynamics in this book, particularly with the Quileute tribe, but in terms of the like relationship being toxic and all of those other complaints that people throw at this book, I just don't think that they are valid in my opinion. So I don't know. I don't think this book deserves to be this low rated. It makes me sad. The next book here on this list is Love, Hate, and Clickbait by Liz Bowery. This is a male-male romance between a politician and he's like a staffer to a politician and a like tech guy in the political office. I gave this book 3 stars. I think I might give it 3.5 and rounded it down. I definitely kind of agree with the average Goodreads rating. This book was just like not great. My biggest complaint was I didn't like the relationship dynamic. These two hate each other, and it's not like enemies in a fun way, you know, the kind of enemies where you're like, just kiss already. This was different dynamic. This was like they couldn't stand to be in the same room as each other. They like genuinely like hated each other for reasons that they thought were justifiable. It wasn't just like a miscommunication type of thing. So that made it so difficult to overcome in order to root for their romance. That was the main reason why I didn't love this book. It ended up being all right. It definitely wasn't horrible, but I can see why other people didn't like it because I definitely had complaints as well. Next book on this list is Sailing with Her Wolf by Ariel Marie. This is the first book that's come up that I've actually DNF'd. So I did DNF this book. I think I maybe read 25% of it. This is a female shifter romance. So I have gotten kind of into Omegaverse this year. So I was looking for some like WLW Omegaverse romances, and this was the first one I tried, and it was not it. It was not it. It was just very poorly written. It was very like sexually charged, and not that I don't like a good smut scene, but I need the emotions, the pining, the angst, the attraction in order for the smut scenes to be good. And I was missing that in this book. It was very surface level, so wasn't a fan of this one. DNF'd it, and I can see why. It has an average rating of 3.67. I would say it deserves a lower rating than that, but hey, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yums, so definitely not for me though. Next book is Everyone Dies Famous in a Small Town by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. This book has an average rating of 3.7, and I give it a 2-star rating. I do kind of agree that this book is not the best. This was a like short story collection where all the short stories kind of intertwined. They all follow like young adult characters in small towns, and it really didn't have anything that it was about. It's just short stories about random characters in small towns, and I just didn't really like it. I thought it was very boring. It was hard to get through, so I can see why it doesn't have the highest rating. I would have to agree. Man, the bags under my eyes look so bad in this light. I keep looking at them. Like, fuck, I look horrible. Oh my god. Am I okay? I don't know. Next, A Little Light Mischief by Cat Sebastian. This is a novella in this series. I don't know what the series is. I've only read this one because it was a female historical romance and I wanted something short and sweet. This has an average rating of 3.70. I give it 3 stars, so around about the same. I just didn't think that this novella was like super well developed. I didn't feel like I had enough time with the characters to get to know them and to get to root for their relationship. In the reviews, that's a lot of people felt similarly. It just like wasn't long enough, wasn't developed enough. So I don't know. This was an average read and I feel like most people probably thought the same. Next book on the list is Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. This is the 3rd book in the Twilight Saga, obviously. This is my personal least favorite book in the series. not of all time, obviously. This is just in the series. This is a 4-star read for me. Again, I have some issues with it. Mainly that Jacob is the worst character ever written in any book ever. He sucks so bad, especially in this book. I can see why this one has a lower rating than other because I don't like it as much. But is it really among the worst books that I've read in 2022? No, not at all. So it kind of makes me mad that this whole series is down here. I'm gonna move on. Next book is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. This book has an average rating of 3.72 and I gave it 3 stars. I definitely understand why this one is down here. This one definitely was a letdown for me because Cemetery Boys was one of my favorite books that I read in 2020 and I was really hoping that this next book by Aiden Thomas was going to be just as good. It was a Peter Pan retelling. I love Peter Pan, so I was super excited for it, but it really let me down. It was just very slow paced and not very fun, and there was this whole conversation when this book came out that people were disappointed that it wasn't queer. Aiden Thomas coming back and being like, I don't have to always write queer books, like I'm allowed to write other things, which I agree with, but also I wish it was queer. I think I would have liked it more, so that's on that. The next book here is Precious by Ro Horvat. This book has an average rating of 3.74 and I gave it a 4-star rating. I think I probably gave it a 3.75, rounded up to a 4, right on the nose of the average Goodreads rating. This is a male Omegaverse and literally the smuttiest book I've ever read in my entire fucking life. I think among reviewers that was the biggest complaint, was that it was too much smut and not enough relationship development, and I can see that, but in my opinion it had enough relationship development because it's kind of like a soulmates puzzle piece romance, so they know, you know, and sometimes that's enough for me. I don't know, I liked it. I definitely don't think that this is a masterpiece of literature. It is like the opposite of that. But it was a fun read and I had a good time reading it, so I don't think it deserves to be down here. On the other hand, Neon Gods by Katie Robert, with an average rating of 3.74, I think deserves to be down here. This is actually the last book I'm going to talk about. This is the 20th book. I gave it a 2-star and was not a fan. This is a smutty Hades and Persephone retelling and I was really expecting it to be more smutty and smutty in a different way. I was expecting like BDSM, dom sub energy, and we were told that we were going to get that, but Katie Robert did not follow through on that, so I was left disappointed. Was not my favorite, and I really thought it was more people's favorite, but I guess not. So yeah, I don't love this book. I think this book got really popular on TikTok, so I feel like a lot of people read it that wouldn't have otherwise picked it up, including me, which I think is probably why it has a lower average rating, because people like me who don't like this kind of thing and don't usually read it read it because it was so popular on BookTok, so I think that's probably the reason why it's so low rated on here. But yes, that was the worst books I've read in 2022 according to Goodreads. I feel like this was a really interesting list. I feel like most of these books that were on here were very average reads for me, like 3-star reads for me, which is interesting. There was only one book on here that I think I'm going to put in my worst books of the year list. Again, I haven't made that yet officially, but there was only one book that I like really hated that was in this list of 20 books, which is super interesting. And then there's actually 2 books that I gave 5 stars to in here. Twilight kind of doesn't count because it's a reread, but I love Something Fabulous. That's up there of books that I've read this year, so I'm sad that that one's in there, but I think for the most part I agree with, or at least can see why these books are the lowest rated books I've read this year. So this was a super interesting experiment and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Again, if you want to watch me react to the best books that I read in 2022 according to Goodreads, check out that video I posted posted yesterday. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me some Christmas tree emojis for Bookmas. Also, let me know what the worst book you read in 2022 was according to Goodreads, and if you agree with the rating or not. I think that would be so interesting. Definitely subscribe to my channel for more Bookmas content and like this video if you liked it. You can also follow me on Instagram and Goodreads if you would like to. My links are in the description down below. And I think that is all from me and my eye bags today. And I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.